Leader. And can I start with apologies for absence?
Chairman, we have apologies from Councillor Lewis and Councillor Mills.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest in matters before us this evening? None. Thank you. In which case, can we approve the minutes of the last Cabinet meeting, pages 1 to 12? Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. And as usual, we will confirm that the Cabinet reports 5 to 8 will be heard in public and 9 to 12 will be heard in private. So let's kick off with the first report. It's agenda item 5 on page 13 of the agenda. It's a ResPOC committee review, disposal of charity waste through New Year's Green Lane Civic Amenity Site. Councillor Burrows.
Thank you, Leader. And in the absence of the ResPOC Chairman, Councillor Michael White, I'll move the report and just say a few words, as I know you wish to expand on what the report's about, Leader. It is a good piece of work by ResPOC, yet again. It did require a shakedown. I know you're going to explain why, Leader. And it doesn't mean, by moving these recommendations and agreeing recommendations, that charities are unable to dispose waste anymore at this site. I will leave it there and hand over to you, Leader, because I know that you want to speak to the report.
Thank you, Councillor Burrows. Yes, this is a topic that I suggested to ResPOC a little while back when it became apparent that, I suppose to a degree, it was abuse of our civic amenity site by charities, mainly out of borough charities, who, whilst there's no their charitable intent is not in dispute, but they were more house clearance type things and clearing a whole house, taking the bits they needed and then wanted to dump the rest, which is fine, but only to a certain degree. We can't pick up the tab for that. So I referred it to ResPOC and asked them to look at the facts, look at what other boroughs do, and come up with a way forward. And this is what they've proposed, that charities based within the borough be given an annual free waste allowance of 10 tonnes of non-recyclable waste to be disposed of at New Year's Green Lane Civic Amenity Site, and that is more than ample for charities in the borough. If they should exceed that, on the off chance, then they would have to pay as trade waste, and the rate is £160 a tonne. And for those charities based outside the borough, they will be charged for the deposit of non-recyclable waste and encouraged to deposit it in an amenity site in their own local authority. So they are the recommendations, and broadly we as a Cabinet are asked to include this in our fees and charges schedule, and also that charities are provided with guidance on this, so they're fully aware of what our terms and conditions are. Now, as you say, Councillor Burrows, it's a good report. They've done a good job in looking at the options, looking at what others do, and I have no hesitation in recommending that we agree the recommendations that ResPOC have put forward. Are there any other comments, or can we take those as agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. I think we should also minute our thanks to ResPOC for this work. Thank you. Agenda item 6, page 31, Corporate Services and Partnerships Policy Overview Committee, Review of Recruitment in Hillingdon. Councillor Cawthorne.
Thank you, Leader. I'm very pleased to move this report in the absence of Councillor Lewis, and I would invite the POC Chairman to address Cabinet. Thank you.
Councillor Cawthorne and Cabinet and Leader, thank you. Over the last decade, recruitment has changed significantly in both the public and private sector. And to ensure that we remain a competitive employer, we felt it was vital that we look at those trends and adapt ourselves and look at what we're doing now to see how we can better be focused on making sure that we're a competitive employer. The use of social media, online particularly, has changed the way that the job market operates, and it's a hugely competitive arena. As you'll see, using evidence from both within the Council, from our HR team, and external witnesses who specialise in recruitment, this review recommends changes to our branding, online recruitment, the social media profile, and how we market ourselves, most particularly how we respond to the new rise of websites which actually comment on what it's like to work for Hillingdon Council, for example, and how we positively respond to those. It will help increase our chances that high-calibre candidates will pick us as an employer of choice in a market which is not just money-driven. With a unique new employer brand and an improved method of targeting candidates, the Council is therefore better placed, we believe, to publicise itself and reach out to those prospective new staff members, and in turn positively impact on the culture within the organisation and the Council to improve staff retention, which is obviously critical. So by delivering these recommendations, we believe, using a smart approach within the current budget, so we're not looking for any extra financing here, the committee believes that we will allow us to approach the future confidently, so we can compete at the highest level, and would ask you to endorse the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Seaman-Digby. Can I say this is a very professional piece of work, and could you take our thanks back to your committee for producing it for us. For the avoidance of doubt, the first 10 recommendations are those produced by the Overview Committee. You did cover the matter of finance, but 11 is an additional recommendation proposed by us. There's a lot in this report, and whilst we're not suggesting that we wouldn't support any external funding if we needed it, we would want it to come to Cabinet before we did so. Any excess of enthusiasm was sort of kept in check. But it's extremely good, and I again would recommend to Cabinet that we adopt the 10 recommendations of POC and recommendation 11 proposed by the Cabinet. Councillor Cawthorne.
Just to sort of build a little on what you said, Leader. I think within my own portfolio, I am very much aware of the challenges of recruitment and retention for certain roles, and certainly we often discuss the need to make sure we're equipped with the right policies, processes, and with appropriate flexibility to make that happen. And drawing from my own HR background, I've taken a very keen interest in this particular review. I think it's an excellent piece of work. It really drills into the detail, teases out the issues, and presents, I think, in a very positive way, some practical recommendations to take us forward, building on what's already been happening in this area. And I've long argued that HR should be in the vanguard of organisational improvement, coming forward with ideas and solutions rather than problems, and I think what's been put forward here will help us build very much on the can-do approach, which reflects the way we see things here, to respond effectively to the challenges that we face now and in the future. So I commend the report and its recommendations to Cabinet. Thank you. Well done.
Are the recommendations agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Agenda item 7, page 59, the Council Budget 16-17, month 11, Revenue and Capital Budget Monitoring. Councillor Bianco.
Thank you, Leader. As you said, month 11, that means February. We're nearly at the last year end now, one more month to go, and yet again a small improvement in the underspend forecast for the year end. You'll see a small improvement of a reasonably sized improvement actually of 242,000, taking the total net underspend shown here at just over 2.4 million, which of course is a good news story. There are 8 recommendations at the bottom of page 59 and on the top half of page 60. Most of which are self-evident, and a number of which I know you will talk to yourself in a moment or two. So it's worth taking those in. The background, as normal, shows that balances, general fund balances, will be something in the order of 39 million, better than we had previously forecast. And again, turning on a few pages, you will see that the capital expenditure again shows the sorts of spaces we've found in the past, underspends, but nonetheless carrying forward a good level of balances and opportunities for further expenditure in the forthcoming year, which I think is very important. On that point, Leader, I'm going to stop there, as I know there are a number of things that you will want to pick up on. But I move the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Bianco. As you say, a very sound position to be coming in even at month 11, and I expect some slight improvement by the time we get to the outturn. 2.5 million under budget. The level of balance is carried forward, which is quite significant. It's a very sound position, and still maintaining the services that our residents value as well. I think I'd comment, as usual, on recommendation 2. This is the Treasury Management Update shown on page 97 of the agenda. And as usual, it would show that our outstanding deposits. We have deposits of £104.7 million, still only attracting an average rate of 0.57%, so interest rates are fairly low for money deposited. And on debt, our 76 million general fund debt, we're paying at 3.36. No scheduled debt repayments or early debt repayment opportunities during February, so that's very similar to previous months. Recommendation 3 is the continuation of delegated authority for the appointment of consultancy or agency assignments where the cost of that assignment has gone over 50k. This is one of the disciplines that we have had for some time. Details of those are shown on pages 98 to 100. Some are continuing where the approval is only for, say, 2,000 a month, but because it's been so many months, it's gone over the 50k. So we keep a running total. Recommendation 4. This is, as usual, we have some planning performance agreements. These are gift funding, and there are 3 that we are asked to accept. One relating to the old vinyl factory in Blythe Road, Hayes, up to 92,000. Southall Gasworks redevelopment, Minette Park, Hayes, 40,000, and Stockley Park, Phase 1, 23,500. Recommendation 5 is to approve the amendments to fees and charges for 17/18 relating to Marlborough Crescent. This is property previously known as Berkeley Park, and the details contained in Appendix G. It's quite straightforward. We need to actually agree a schedule of charges for this new accommodation that we have got now. It's page 101 if you'd like to have a look at that. 6, some supplementary fees and charges. These weren't available to us at budget setting time. Some small changes to fees relating to golf courses and bereavement services. They are contained in Appendix H, and the overriding factor, of course, is that we do benchmark these against neighbouring authorities and ensure that we do not exceed 90% of the average charge by our neighbouring authorities. So it's always cheaper than those authorities around us. So these charges are based on that. And recommendation 7, and this one I'd ask executive scrutiny to waive the call-in on this one. This is the carbon credits that we have to acquire in the current month. If we forward purchase, and we're forward purchasing now for part of 17/18, part of 18/19, these allowances will be made in June 17. So we need to purchase carbon credits for 192k, and that's a reasonable, the best price we can get by purchasing them now. And finally, to ratify a decision taken by myself and the Deputy Leader regarding the contract for occupational therapy and speech and language therapy for children in mainstream schools, and agree that the tender be awarded directly to Central and North West London NHS Foundation. This was an urgency issue that we had to deal with, and as the Constitution requires our reporting back to Cabinet that we've made that decision now. Are there any other comments, or are the recommendations agreed? Okay, agreed. Thank you. Agenda item 8 is page 107. It's a school capital programme update. Councillor Simmons.
Thank you, Leader. I'm proposing that rather than having an update on this at every Cabinet meeting, from today we'll move to receiving an update report twice a year. That's partly because it feels like every single Cabinet meeting we're reporting consistently good progress, and I guess the Deputy Chief Executive, who is ultimately responsible for this, may be running out of things to say that make it exciting for each new monthly Cabinet. But this report arrives at a time when there are a number of significant developments. I think having it 6 monthly will allow us to keep sufficiently abreast of the general progress with the programme, whilst, of course, there will be regular opportunities at Cabinet to take any decisions that we need to take, for example, on issuing contracts or making changes to the programme as and when they are required. So the report today highlights in particular for members the progress with the Priority School Building Programme Phase 2. A number of schools which have been successful, which have completed their initial feasibility studies, which is a good sign I think we would have to consider, although it is the Education Funding Agency that will be ultimately responsible for managing most of those projects. And a concerning point really is that with the Phase 1 schools, Abbotsfield School, which I think members again will be aware was the scene of a significant accident involving one of the contractors, is delayed. Clearly we are pushing the Education Funding Agency to make sure that that work is completed as quickly and as safely as possible. Also note in terms of additional places that are opening, today was the opening ceremony for a new University Technical College in the borough. It took place this morning at the Old Vinyl Factory, sponsored by the Global Media Group, who are the parent company for people like Classic FM and LBC and lots of things like that. Certainly from the discussions I've had with them in the run-up to this, it looks like it will be a very popular type of setting for a University Technical College, taking children from 14 through to 18, likely to draw from a wider area across West London than just Hillingdon, but offering something genuinely different from what's available elsewhere in the market, and I think we would wish them all the very best success with that programme. So with those comments and observations, I'll do my best to answer any questions and move the recommendation that's on page 107.
Thank you, Councillor Simmons. You're right to recommend 6 monthly. I think it is a good news story every month, and it's one of the things that we got on top of very early on to make sure that we were providing school places where required, when required, and by and large, where we've been in charge, we've produced on time, on budget. This must be filtering through to the admissions. How did we deal with admissions this year?
Well, I'm very glad you asked that question, Leader. As members may have read in the press, Hillingdon was top in West London for ensuring that mums and dads got one of their top choices, with well in excess of many of our neighbours in the 90 percentages, and every child who made an application in Hillingdon was offered a primary school place on time, as expected.
Thank you. And with that ringing endorsement, I think we agree the recommendation. Thank you. Right, we now move to part 2.